All right, it's another week and another opportunity for us to put some perspective on our colorful world. It's the Erase Races Emergency Room, and it's also time for the Wayne Carlen Show. Let's do it.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Wayne Carlen Show. I'm Wayne.
And I'm Carlen, and it's that show that puts you in the know. So now you know it's the Wayne Carlen Show. It's definitely been another crazy week in skin-colored news, as we call it. Since we're erasing race, we call it skin-colored news. So we're going to take some time this week to cover three of the big ones from this past week, and they're three pretty big ones, and I think substantial in our erase race movement because of the way that they were resolved. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and profile today's show. Wayne?
Wow. Joe Biden's, he's talking again. And so anytime he's talking, there's always news regarding that. So we're going to touch base on that. After that, we'll follow up with something that happened in Central Park, of all places, in New York City, where a woman threatened and actually did call the police on a gentleman for no reason whatsoever. And then the last thing we're going to do, and it's the most tragic of all, we're going to talk about the incident that the whole country is aware of right now that happened in Minneapolis, where another unarmed man of color, black man, was taken out, police department, and we'll get into details about what happened when we follow up. Before we do that, Carlen, talk to us a little bit about our unity movement and how people can support us.
Okay, yeah, so none of this stuff we do is for free. I mean, it takes money to make this happen or whatever, but really our aim is to really get that ideological support. We want you thinking like we think, and then we want you giving because you believe what we believe. And so that's what our aim is. And so more than just the money, which we need the money, then we want to get that ideological support. And we believe that you will support that. And so we've got an opportunity where you can go out to our website, eraseraces.com, our Facebook page at Erase Races, and click on one of those links and see how you can donate and help us, or purchase one of our motivating t-shirts. We really like our t-shirt line that we've got out there. Hope collection, love collection, human collection. We got a lot of different collections. Go out there and be a part of the movement by supporting us. And so with that said, let's get an update, because everything is so coronavirus in our country right now. So let's get an update. We'll start with Wayne on the West Coast. Tell us what's happening with coronavirus.
Well, out here we are moving into what we call, our governor's calling, the second part of phase 2. I didn't know it was 2 parts to phase 2. So just this week alone, nail salons, barbershops, got my appointment tomorrow, are going to be open this week. Churches have been allowed to reopen based on the fact of they can go operate at 25% capacity. So various things are opening up this week. My small business is still closed. We fall under that fitness center type place. So we're still closed, waiting for that word. But I'm already preparing. Other businesses are preparing, social distancing, whatever they have to do. I've already told my students they may have to wear masks for the first couple of weeks. So we'll see. It's going to be like training at high altitude. So there's nothing wrong with that. But things are moving forward slowly. School districts, we're still not sure yet. They have not announced whether they're going to be open in the fall or not. So we're waiting to hear that. My daughter graduates from school next week, and she's supposed to start attending a local junior college. We don't even know if it's going to be open yet, for live classes. So that's where we are.
Yeah, and in Texas, of course, we were one of the early states. They said we were opening up, but really things didn't change much. But of course, now we're entering into our next phase, which has a lot more things opening up. Matter of fact, I've actually got a presentation to do with a group tomorrow that previously wasn't going to be scheduled, but now that we are opened up in Texas, then I can actually go give a presentation for our Erase Race movement. So that's going to happen. And And of course, everywhere I go, I take a mask with me because some places are very stern on have a mask and others are more lenient. And so I just kind of make a determination as I go, because I don't want to be in one of those videos that you see on Facebook where people are really getting into it about not having a mask on or anything like that. So I think we need to make this progress, though, because ultimately, you know, with children having a very low risk for the coronavirus, I think we should probably try to get them back into the educational system, because we got a lot of issues that we create for ourselves when our kids are not in school. I'm sure it takes parents to tell you that. They understand that. So, but it's not anything I think we should fight about in our country, which is seemingly what we do on everything. We fight about whether or not it should happen. That's just my opinion. And if people disagree, well, let's talk about it and let's come up with some real solutions on it. You know, that's what we should do.
I want to go back to that mask issue you said real quick. Something happened to my daughter and my granddaughter. They were in the store, and for whatever, they didn't have their mask that day. And some man, of course, I wasn't there, so he's going to say what he wants to say. He says to them, "Where's your mask?" And, you know, they didn't answer him because they taught they don't have to respond to strangers. And he coughed. You know, he started coughing like, so, you know, he's being funny. Now, would he do that to me or you if we were walking in the store? Maybe, but probably not. So, yeah, some people out there just being jerks about it. So best to have one if you can for now.
Anyway. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of that, and that's what the American Unity Movement is for. We want to be sanity and the voice of reason while everybody else is not. And so with that said, let's go ahead and start tackling some of these issues that we've had this week. And of course, as we end our coronavirus update, our first topic is going to be the Biden topic. So Wayne, Joe Biden is out again. He's talking. So what do we get from that?
Yeah, well, for me personally, I was upset about it. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends were like, "Hey, don't worry about it. Just, you know, look over this. The main thing to do is to get the current president out of the White House, get a new president in there, and then we'll worry about his comments." But I'm not one. I don't like being bullied. I don't like being threatened. You know, especially don't tell me that I'm not this or I'm not that if I don't vote for you. He needs to understand that, you know, people will vote for you because of what kind of policies you want to bring forth, what kind of agenda you're going to bring forth, not just because you are the answer to what we have currently. Because you may not be the answer unless you can come up with an agenda that's going to meet the needs of the people. So, you know, telling people that they're not black if they don't understand the difference between you and Trump, you know, you went way beyond where you should be going as a politician, in my opinion. Now, everybody doesn't agree with me. A lot of people say, you know, this is something that we shouldn't even think about. We should just brush it off. But, you know, you got to come cleaner than that than, you know, try to get a vote for me, sir.
Yeah, I just look at the entire interview, and because I went back and watched the interview, and because I, of course, you know, and the same issue I've always had with President Trump is that I'm a character guy, and I think very big about character. I don't care if you're the smartest guy in the room or the dumbest guy in the room, but you can have character regardless of what your IQ is and anything else like that. And so I didn't like the demeanor that I saw from Joe Biden. I don't know him as well as, I guess, some of the other people that were running, and I don't know him as well as the presidents that we've had thus far because I haven't seen him for as long. But from what I got out of that, my impression of Joe Biden there was not a guy that I would support character-wise, which is the same feeling I had for Donald Trump. And so it's as one guy said on a Facebook post, he called Biden, he's the blue Trump, you know? Wow. And so that really says a lot about, we're pretty much just stuck with the two same type of guys from the viewpoint of a lot of people. And so the question is, and the issue is, where do the American voting populace go when you've got two of the same type of guys running? And so I guess we'll find that out.
Yeah, I've been telling a lot of people, I hope he chooses a good running mate because, you know, him alone, and I go way back with him too, you know, going all the way back to when he was involved in the 1994 crime bill and all the comments he made about predators and some of the same stuff that Hillary Clinton made, you know, and I know a lot of people say, you know, but they're better than that. And I get why you're saying that. I understand. But that should not be enough just because they're better than that person. They need to come correct as well.
That's right.
So
that's true. That's true. All right. So our next incident we've got number 2 on the list today is our New York City Park Incident. So let's talk about what happened there. So Wayne, tell us a little bit about that.
So, you know, again, most people are aware of this gentleman, Mr. Cooper was out bird watching, and apparently he's an avid bird watcher. He was out bird
Isn't
watching.
that interesting? They both have the same last name,
Yeah,
Cooper.
both named Cooper, right? And he saw
Your
this
relatives, your relatives.
oh, somewhere. He saw this lady, though, in an area where dogs are not allowed to be off leash. And he asked her, hey, put your dog on a leash because it's going to scare away the birds that like to dwell on the ground or like to forage on the ground. And of course, it went high and to the right at that point. And ended up with her saying, I am going to call 911, and I'm going to tell them an African-American man is threatening my life and threatening my dog's life. And he wasn't. And thank God he was running his video. I don't know if it was Facebook Live or what it was. He filmed the whole thing. And she knew he was filming because she actually approached him with her finger pointing at his face, telling him to stop filming me. Don't film me. Don't film me. Well, he kept doing it. And thankfully, now the result, most people know what the result is. Her company, Franklin Templeton, did the right thing. He said, we don't want somebody like that working for our company.
And that was great because to me, that's beautiful. I'm always making that leadership pitch. And I think that is really the resolution of a lot of these issues that we have in our country, because we've had this, and the difference between now and 1950s, 1960s was that leadership always supported violent acts and acts of aggression and acts of wrong. They supported that. And nowadays, I think we've got a change in our society, a C-state change, I call it, in the sense that when something like this happens, not only do most of the American people side with the righteous thing to do in this case, but so do the organizations, the leadership. And when they're given an opportunity, just as Franklin Templeton did, then they do the right thing in most cases. Now, a lot of these things are resolved, I think, before they even get to the news or become big issues. So we don't know about all the cases, but this is a good example of the way it should happen. And so I think organizations need to look at this and say, wow, because Franklin Templeton didn't wait. They didn't wait on an investigation and all this other stuff. They said, we don't want people of that type in our company. So they made a stance. And not only that, she was a pretty high executive in the company. So that said a lot about them. And whether they did it, because the next question, of course, will be from people saying, yeah, but they only did it for a money motive. They only did it for, well, that's progress, because before they wouldn't do it for any reason, because it was more important for them to stick with their kind or this particular philosophy on what they were doing. So that's a big change in our society, and we need to see that and understand and give people that opportunity and make sure leadership has that responsibility. And I think American people can do that, not just a particular group of American people, but we all can do that, hold our leaders accountable.
Yeah, and I think personally, I believe there should be some kind of legislation that is passed that says, and there is in certain areas, but in this case, it seems to be getting even more happening a lot more. There should be some legislation. When you call 911 and make a false report like this, saying that this man is threatened because his life now is in danger. The police come in blazing and they hear that somebody, and it almost sounds, if you listen to the recording, it almost sounds like she is being attacked at the moment. She's at least 20 or 30 feet away from him, but she's hyperventilating and he's attacking and all that. And so if I'm a police officer, I might come in thinking I need to rescue this woman, and I might act before I find out what really happened. And so there should be some kind of legislation passed that doesn't allow this to get away with. She needs to be, and other people who do this kind of thing need to be brought up on some type of charges, in my opinion.
Well, and did you see that even the people where she had the place where she had gotten the dog from, they took the dog back. And they said they were going to hold the dog because of the way she was treating the dog.
Oh yeah, she was they're basically choking the dog out, holding him up by his collar,
So this is accountability, and this is the way I think our system is designed to work. And I think if you see this in all of our institutions, businesses, and churches, and everything like that, this is the answer. I think this is the answer. Now, the other intervention, of course, are movements like American Unity, where you go and talk to people so that they can prevent this from happening in the first place. And so you got that approach, but then on the other end, when it does happen, you got the accountability. We can fix America. And this is what fixing America looks like. And it's not politicians, it's not that, it's the American people making this happen. And then the enterprises there that make up America, the businesses and churches and all these other institutions, we are the solution for America. That's why my attitude towards Biden or Trump or anybody else is, okay, I don't agree with them, but they're not the end all be all of America. We the people are. So pretty cool. All right. So let's get to our final one. And we want to transition to our Minneapolis incident. So what happened in this one there, Wayne? What happened in Minneapolis?
Wow. Yeah, last week I think we were still talking about what happened to Breonna Taylor in Louisville. And now here we go once again, where an unarmed man dies at the hands of horrific, horrible police work. What we see in that picture right there, where the police officer has his knee, his left knee, in the side of the neck, where the other side of the gentleman's neck, his name was Mr. Floyd, George Floyd, where he has his neck pressed against the ground. Everybody knows that's a death technique right there. I mean, I'm surprised he lived as long as he did, actually, to be honest with you. In martial arts, we if you're fighting for your life, that's where you can attack right there, and you're going to be able to put that person out, either to sleep or kill them if you have to, in defense of your life. But as far as a police tactic, that was unnecessary. He wasn't fighting. He was pleading for his life. He was saying he couldn't breathe. It is that officer's job at that point to make sure that that man get in a better position where he can breathe, where he can recover, or whatever was going on. They actually did call an ambulance, but they didn't do anything to change the situation. It's one thing to call, but it's another thing to keep that position like he did. Last thing I'll say about it is, when I was a federal agent and I trained people, but before that, I was trained that even if you put the cuffs on a suspect and you put them on too tight to where it's cutting off their circulation, it was our job to loosen up those cuffs. If it was safe, you wouldn't do it if somebody's fighting, but if they're relaxed and calm like this gentleman was, you would loosen up those cuffs so you wouldn't cut off the circulation to their hands. Humanization. Even though we might be arresting somebody, we cared about that individual's life and their well-being. That's who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be there to protect and to serve. Unfortunately, this officer and all of his officers that were with him, they weren't concerned about that at all.
And you said it beautifully with the humanity part of it, because there's not a human who could look at that and listen to the words as he's being held down there, listen to the words of the bystanders who are talking to the police officers, and not feel a sense of sympathy and empathy for the plight that they're in at that point. Because people who are looking at this, that's why I was so shocked that the other officers who were there couldn't sense that, especially with the prodding from the civilians who were standing by and talking to them about what they were doing. And so it's really it's tragic from a human viewpoint. This is nothing, from my viewpoint, has nothing to do with race as much as it has to do with the way we treat each other as human beings. I wouldn't do that to any human being. And I would even say, regardless of what I was holding them for, they could have murdered one of my relatives. And if I'm holding them, then unless I was in self-defense and trying to defend myself, I wouldn't put them through that type of pain, because I know what that's doing. So it's the issue of humanity. And I think that's where we've got to be on all these things. And once again, the leadership angle is played here in the Minneapolis Police Department and what they did at this time, because very briefly did they suspend them pending investigation, but then immediately fired them because, of course, not only was that something that they didn't want to support, but they realized that was totally against their protocol and the way that they treat people, which says a lot to us and should be some sense of calm, although a lot of people will still be skeptical about law enforcement. Right. But I tell you what, that's a move in the right direction for us to begin to see law enforcement as people who do regard all people as humans, which is what we espouse to do in the American Unity Movement.
Yeah, I made a Facebook post regarding law enforcement, and I've been retired for 10 years, and yet I still do support law enforcement. And I think they're necessary, obviously. But a lot of people were angry and upset about that, and in some sense, rightfully so, because their experiences with law enforcement have not been good. And because a lot of the bad officers out there, like this person, have dominated the airways, and in some neighborhoods have treated people wrongly. And so that's what they grew up with, and that's what they see. And so they don't have respect for law enforcement. We need more good people and more good officers. Think about the difference. If one of those officers would have grabbed, I can't even think of his name, I don't want to say his name at this point, would have grabbed him and said, move, and would have done the right thing, then some people could have said, see, that's what a good officer does. But they didn't do it. They stood by and watched. So we need good officers now to step up and stop allowing these bad officers to get away with what they're getting away with, because it's ruining law enforcement for what it should be standing for.
So a great show today that, we covered 3 very high profile cases from this week. And, we pray that we won't have 3 more to cover next week. But I tell you what, if we do, we'll cover them. And at American Unity Movement, we cover them in a way that leaves it objective and says that we can all solve these problems if we begin working together, because that's what we aspire to do. And so we want you to support us at Erase Racism, the American Unity Movement. We got a $1 for one race campaign, which we use to push the fact that we are all human so that we don't have things like this happen. We attempt to go around the country in the future, and we've done this in the past, and try to get people to sign up to the fact that we are all made in the image of God, and through unity and through service and love for all mankind, we can bring that about so that people can begin to relate to each other as the humans that we are. And so feel free to support us. Go out to our store at eraseracist.com and purchase one of those outstanding t-shirts. Market the message, and you will be a blessing to our entire country. So we thank you for being a part of our show today. And Wayne, you can close this out.
So guys, just thanks for watching again. We love to have time sitting down with you. And don't forget, next week, same time, we'll tell you what you need to know on the Wayne and Carlen Show.
Hey, now you know. Now you know.